The forest of Velthoria was silent. Not the peaceful silence of sleeping creatures, but the heavy silence of fear. Something was wrong, and every living thing knew it. The trees themselves seemed to hold their breath, their great purple leaves motionless despite the gentle wind. Kiravel stood at the edge of the great tree line, her blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light of 3 moons. She was a Velthani, one of the finest archer warriors her species had ever produced. Her eyes, solid silver with no visible pupils, scanned the darkness ahead. In her hands, she held a bow made from the bones of ancient sky beasts, a weapon that had been in her family for 12 generations. The string hummed with quiet energy, eager for release. Tonight, she hunted something different. Tonight, she hunted a human. The Velthani had heard stories about humans for centuries. They were a young species from a distant arm of the galaxy, barely 10,000 years into their civilization. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom. They could not see in the dark like the Velthani could. They could not hear the whisper of wind through leaves from miles away. They were soft, slow, and by all logical standards, they should have been prey for any proper predator. But the stories said otherwise. The stories spoke of humans who walked into impossible situations and walked out alive. Stories of humans who refused to die when death was certain. Stories of entire armies falling before small groups of these strange creatures. Stories that made no sense to the logical mind of a Velthani warrior. Kiravel did not believe these stories. She believed in what she could see, touch, and kill. Stories were for children and old ones sitting by warm fires. Reality was cold metal and sharp arrows and the final breath of the dying. The human had arrived on Velthoria 3 days ago. His ship had crashed in the northern mountains during a magnetic storm, and he had been moving south ever since. The Velthani Council had watched his progress through their sensor network. They had debated for 2 days before reaching their decision. The human must be eliminated. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictable things were dangerous to the carefully ordered society of Velthoria. Kiravel was chosen because she never missed. In 200 years of life, she had fired 10,000 arrows. Every single one had found its mark. She had killed enemies of every shape and size. She was death itself, wrapped in blue skin and silver eyes, moving through the world like a shadow that carried the end of life. She moved through the forest without sound. Her feet knew exactly where to step, finding the silent places between fallen leaves and dry twigs. Her breathing was controlled, almost non-existent. She was a ghost among the trees, invisible to all senses. The human's trail was easy to follow. He made no effort to hide his path. Broken branches, footprints in soft soil, and the strange chemical smell that all humans carried. Kiravel almost felt insulted by how simple this hunt was proving to be. A child warrior could have followed this trail. This would be too easy. She found him in a small clearing, sitting beside a fire. He was cooking something over the flames, some kind of meat from a local animal he had apparently caught with primitive traps. He was alone, seemingly unarmed, and completely exposed to attack from any direction. Kiravel positioned herself behind a large tree, exactly 40 meters from her target. This was her preferred distance. Close enough for absolute accuracy, far enough to escape if needed. Not that she would need to escape from this soft creature with his thin skin and blunt teeth. She studied him for a moment, memorizing his form as she did with all her targets. He was tall for his kind, with brown skin and dark hair cut short against his skull. His body was covered in simple clothing, some kind of fiber material, nothing that would stop an arrow. He moved with a relaxed manner, casually turning the meat over the fire, as if he was not stranded on an alien world with hunters searching for him in the darkness. Strange, she thought. He should be afraid. Every creature in this forest was afraid tonight. They could sense the predator in their midst. They had fled or hidden or frozen in terror. But not him. He sat by his fire and cooked his dinner as if this was any normal evening. Perhaps humans were too stupid to feel fear. Perhaps their lack of natural senses meant they could not detect danger the way proper creatures could. Yes, that must be it. He was simply unaware of his coming death. She raised her bow and drew an arrow from the quiver on her back. The arrow was tipped with metal from a dying star, sharp enough to pierce any armor, any hide, any bone. It had killed creatures with shells thick as starship hulls. One shot to the heart, and the human would be dead before he knew what happened. His last thought would be confusion, wondering what had struck him. Then nothing. Kiravel took aim. Her breathing stopped completely. Her muscles locked into perfect stillness, the product of 2 centuries of practice. The arrow pointed directly at the human's heart. The universe itself seemed to pause, waiting for death to fly through the air. And then the human looked up. He looked directly at her, not in her general direction, not at the tree she was hiding behind. At her, his eyes, brown and strange and completely alien, met her silver ones through 40 meters of darkness and foliage. He saw her despite her perfect concealment. He found her despite her total stillness. He smiled. Kiravel felt something she had never felt before in her long life of killing. Her body would not move. Her fingers would not release the arrow. Her legs would not respond to her commands. She was frozen, caught in the gaze of a creature that should have been her prey. This was impossible. She was the hunter. She was the one who caused paralysis in her targets. She was death. The human stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact. He wiped his hands on his clothing and walked toward her, his steps calm and measured. The fire crackled behind him, casting long shadows across the clearing. His face showed no concern, no fear, no urgency. Kiravel screamed at her body to move. She was a warrior. She was the finest archer of her generation. She had killed creatures 10 times the size of this human, creatures with poison and fire and terrible claws. But her body refused to obey. Something in his eyes held her in place, something primal and terrifying that she could not understand or resist. The human stopped 3 meters away from her. Up close, she could see the details of his face. There were lines around his eyes, marks of age and experience, and perhaps suffering. There was a scar on his jaw, pale against his dark skin, evidence of some past violence survived. And in his eyes, there was something she had never seen in any prey before. There was no fear. There was no panic. There was no pleading. There was curiosity. "You've been following me for 6 hours," the human said. His voice was deep and calm, almost friendly. "You're very good. Better than anyone I've encountered before. I almost didn't notice you until about 20 minutes ago. But you made one mistake." Kiravel's throat finally worked. "What mistake?" She whispered. "You hesitated. Just for a moment, when you had the shot. You hesitated." The human reached out and gently pushed her bow aside. His hand was warm against her cold blue skin. Strange but not unpleasant. She still could not move, could not fight, could not run. She could only stand there as this soft creature touched her with no concern for the weapon she held. "Why can't I move?" she asked. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, high and frightened like a child's voice. "Because your brain is trying to understand something it cannot understand," the human said. "You've never seen a predator that looks like prey before. Your instincts are confused. They've evolved over millions of years to recognize threats by their teeth and claws and size. When they see something small and soft and harmless looking that acts like a predator, they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to fight or flee, so they do neither. Humans are not predators," Kiravel said. "You have no weapons, no natural defenses. Your species is barely old enough to walk among the stars." The human laughed. It was a warm sound, not cruel or mocking. "We have the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy," he said. "We can think. We can adapt. We can become anything we need to become. Give a human a rock, and he'll figure out how to kill a god with it. He took a step back and spread his arms wide, presenting his vulnerable body to her. Look at me. I'm soft. I'm slow. I should have died 100 times since my ship crashed on your world. The cold nearly killed me the first night. The water made me sick. A creature with too many legs tried to eat me yesterday. But I'm still here. Do you know why? Kiravel shook her head slightly. Because I refuse to die, the human said simply. That's what humans do. We refuse. When the universe tells us something is impossible, we do it anyway. When death comes for us, we tell it to wait. And when a beautiful blue archer points an arrow at our heart, we smile and walk toward her. The paralysis began to fade. Kiravel felt her fingers twitch. Her legs regained their strength. Her heart started beating again at its normal pace. But she did not raise her bow. She did not run. She stood there, staring at this impossible creature. The council sent me to kill you, she said. I know. I've been watching your scouts for 2 days. You should be afraid. I know, but I'm not. Why aren't you? The human smiled again, that same warm expression that had frozen her in place. Because fear is a choice. It's a useful choice sometimes, keeps you alive. But sometimes you have to choose something else. I choose to be curious instead. I want to know why your council fears me so much when they have warriors like you. I want to know why you glow in the moonlight like living stars. I want to know if your people have seen the galaxy the way I have seen it. Kiravel had killed many creatures in her long life. Some had begged for mercy. Some had fought until their last breath. Some had accepted death with silent dignity. But none had ever looked at her with wonder. None had ever treated her as anything other than death itself, something to fear or escape or submit to. You are strange, she said. All humans are strange, he agreed. It's our greatest strength. We don't fit into categories. We don't follow the rules the universe sets for species. We just keep going, keep adapting, keep surviving. The fire in the clearing had burned low, its light fading. The 3 moons hung heavy in the purple sky. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called to its mate, the first sound in the forest since she had begun her hunt. Kiravel made a decision. It was not a logical decision. It was not the decision her training demanded or her council expected. It was a human decision, based on something she could not explain or justify with reason. She lowered her bow completely and placed it against the tree. My name is Kiravel, she said. I am a hunter of the Velthani people. My name is Marcus Cole, the human said. I'm a cargo pilot who got very lost and had very bad luck. Your ship crashed in the northern mountains during the storm. Yes, the magnetic interference destroyed my navigation systems. Do you need help repairing it? Marcus blinked. For the first time, genuine surprise showed on his face. Are you offering to help me? I am considering it. Why? Your council wants me dead. Kiravel thought about the question. She thought about the stories she had heard since childhood. She thought about the paralyzing fear that had gripped her when he looked into her eyes. She thought about the way he had smiled when death was pointed at his heart. She thought about curiosity. Because I want to understand, she finally said. I want to understand how a creature with no weapons can make a warrior freeze. I want to understand how something so soft can be so dangerous. I want to understand humans. Marcus nodded slowly. Understanding is the beginning of friendship. That's something my grandmother used to say when I was young. Your grandmother was wise. She was human, Marcus said with a small grin. Same thing, really. Kiravel felt something strange happen to her face. It took her a moment to realize she was smiling. She had not smiled in many years. The expression felt foreign and wonderful. Come with me, she said. There is a village 3 hours from here. The council will not be happy with my decision, but they will listen to me. I have earned that respect. I will tell them that you are not a threat to our people. Am I not a threat? Marcus asked, a hint of humor in his voice. Kiravel looked at him, at this soft, strange, impossible creature who had frozen her with nothing but a look and a smile. "You are the greatest threat I have ever encountered," she said honestly. "But some threats are worth understanding. Some dangers are worth knowing." They walked together through the dark forest, the blue-skinned archer and a human pilot. The night creatures watched them pass, confused by this strange pairing. The three moons continued their slow dance across the purple sky. Behind them, the fire finally died, leaving only ash and memory. And somewhere in the stars, the universe smiled. Because once again, a human had done the impossible. He had turned death into friendship with nothing but curiosity and a refusal to be afraid. He had walked toward a drawn arrow and made the archer lower her bow. This was the nature of humans. This was their gift and their curse. They walked into the darkness and made it light. They faced monsters and made them friends. They looked death in the eye and asked it questions. The Volthani Council would learn this lesson soon enough. The entire galaxy would learn it eventually. Humans were not prey. They were not predators in the traditional sense. They were something far more dangerous and wonderful than either. They were human, and that was always enough.